I'm going to start the webinar now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We will get started in just a few minutes to give everyone a chance to log on. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to those of you who have just joined us. We will get started in a few minutes. Today's webinar recording, slides, and supporting resources will be shared with you all after the presentation ends. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Today, our presentation is What's the Big Deal About Sleep? My name is Anna Tan, and I'm the Be Well Program Coordinator for WorkWell NYC. I will be moderating today's presentation, and I'm delighted to introduce our panelists who will share a lot of great information about sleep and health. We have Dr. Nishay Chikara, the Associate Professor of Medicine at the NYU School of Medicine. We have Dr. Claire Camarada, Deputy Director of the Employee Assistance Program, and Priya Islam, the Wellness Evaluator at WorkWell NYC. Today's presentation is brought to you by WorkWell NYC. WorkWell is the City of New York's Worksite Wellness Program, and our mission is to create workplaces that engage and empower city employees to live healthy, active lifestyles and to provide health and well-being services, programs, and resources. We do this through 5 key program areas. We have Move More, which focuses on physical activity, Eat Well, which targets healthy eating and nutrition, Take Action, which prioritizes primary care and prevention, and Be Well, which emphasizes mental well-being and resilience. And lastly, we have Project Build, which stands for Building Understanding, Inclusion, Learning, and Diversity, which is our health equity initiative. As a reminder about today's presentation, this presentation is being recorded, and the recording, slides, and supporting resources will be sent to you all afterwards. And now we will discuss today's agenda. We will talk about the importance of sleep, learn about different sleep disorders, discuss the intersection of sleep with health disparities, mental health, and nutrition, learn about how to get the sleep you need, and share resources available to city employees. I will now turn it over to Dr. Chikara to take us through the next section.
All right, thank you, Anna. Welcome, everyone. So I wanted to start with a little discussion about why we need sleep. Many of us have wondered this. We all know that we can't do without sleep. And it turns out that sleep is an essential biological function. It allows your body and mind to recharge so that you may wake up feeling rested and refreshed and alert to take on the day. It helps to improve your cognition, your attention, and your focus. It helps to stabilize your mood as well. We all know that once we've gotten a good night's rest, we may wake up feeling rested, refreshed, a little more calm, and less anxious sometimes. In these senses, sleep has the ability to restore and refresh us. Sleep is also helpful because it allows your body to remain healthy and to fight off diseases. And there is some data that show that a lack of sleep has been linked to higher risk for obesity, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, and poor mental health. Sleep also helps to strengthen memory. And this occurs during REM sleep. REM sleep is one of the deeper stages of sleep. And this is where we experience memory consolidation. And this is a process by which recently learned experiences are converted into long-term memories. So all these functions are important for sleep. Sleep is just as important as diet and physical activity for supporting a healthy and long life. So all these things work together: a healthy diet, good quality and good quantity sleep, and a good amount of exercise are all components of healthy living and a healthy lifestyle and promote good health. This slide, it depicts some common sleep disorders that we see in the sleep clinic. Very frequently, we see a lot of insomnia. Some of us have experienced insomnia at some point in our lives, and it may be episodic. It may be associated with stressful events or certain occurrences, and it's often characterized by an inability to initiate or maintain sleep. Sometimes it's episodic, but when it's persistent or recurrent, then it might be associated with underlying medical or mental health issues. And in that case, it should be evaluated and managed in conjunction sometimes with the help of a physician. Restless leg syndrome is something that you may have heard about. This syndrome is characterized by an unpleasant creeping sensation, often in the lower legs, and often associated with aches and pains throughout the legs. That sensation is often worsened by rest and relieved by movement. It too is an entity that can occur unto itself or it can be associated with some underlying conditions. And if someone has it and it's persistent, then it deserves medical attention. Sleep apnea is something you all may have heard about. There's growing attention on sleep apnea recently, partly due to the increased prevalence of obesity in the country. And sleep apnea is characterized by snoring and intermittent pauses in breathing during sleep. Some people may also complain about choking or gasping awake from sleep. This leads to sleep disruption and a lot of poor quality sleep. And the symptoms are often not noted by an individual, but maybe brought to their attention by their bed partner. And by their prompting, they may often be advised to go seek help in the clinic, whereby we would do a sleep study to diagnose sleep apnea and then treat with different modalities, usually CPAP, which is also something you may have heard about. Narcolepsy is a syndrome characterized by persistent and severe daytime sleepiness. Patients may often complain of sleep attacks, during which an overwhelming need to sleep overcomes them. And this is often relieved by naps during the day and often treated with stimulant medications. So that's an overview of some of the most common sleep disorders that we see. We wanted to move on to touch on some sleep-related health disparities among minority groups and people of color. So many minority groups may complain of or experience low quality and poor sleep and an inconsistent sleep schedule. And this may consist of periods of short sleep times, varying with periods of long sleep times. And this is most often occurring during the week and a result of varying shift work schedules. There's an increased prevalence of sleep apnea among minority groups, and it has been shown that there's also an increased prevalence of sleep apnea and a greater severity of sleep apnea in African American people as well. So there are many causes of sleep-related health disparities. Chief among them may be shift work. Minority groups are more likely to work night shifts or irregular or extra hours, and that can throw off their sleep schedule and decrease their ability to synchronize their circadian rhythms with the local day-night schedule, thus leading to sleep disruption. Occupational hazards are significant because many minority groups report job stress from discrimination in the workplace. And also, it's more common for minority groups to work jobs with greater safety risks, which can create stress or occupational exposures to allergens or irritants, which can lead to medical conditions or even worsening of sleep apnea, and then a disruption of sleep. Racial discrimination can have far-reaching effects on a person's health in that it may lead to fear, anger, sadness, and that can be a major stressor, which then leads to a lack of sleep. Financial stress is often experienced among minority groups, and this is because they may face unemployment or poverty, which may create financial pressure and then also add to day-to-day stress. The neighborhood environment is also a significant factor which can lead to sleep disruption. More of a factor experienced among minority groups because neighborhoods often have a high percentage, neighborhoods with a high percentage of racial and ethnic minorities, they often may confront higher levels of pollution, noise, allergens, or other potential stressors that can contribute to poor sleep and sleep apnea. Acculturation is often a factor as well. For many minority groups, especially those made up of significant immigrant communities, the process of interacting with and integrating with the dominant culture in America can be a source of tremendous stress and anxiety, especially as they seek to preserve their own identity. And that dichotomy may lead to decreased sleep quality. Many minority groups may also experience unequal access to and quality of care, and this disparity can lead to broad health effects on health outcomes in that conditions such as sleep apnea are less likely to be diagnosed or effectively treated. All these factors lead to a certain amount of stress, which can then contribute to a state of hyperarousal and contribute to insomnia. So all these things have an effect on one's mental health, and mental health and sleep are closely connected. Poor sleep quality or sleep quantity can impact many of our functions as well, and that includes motor coordination, memory, as I mentioned earlier, Memory consolidation occurs during deeper sleep. Without that deeper sleep, memory can be affected. And concentration is also affected. A lot of us have experienced this as well. When we don't get a good night's rest, our focus and concentration the following day are not as sharp as we would like them to be. Nutrition plays a big role in getting good sleep as well. When you're tired, tend to make poor food choices, opting for high fat or high sugar foods, which may satisfy a craving in the moment, maybe because your brain needs quick access to quick sugar and all, but it's better to opt instead for fruits and vegetables. This is because high calorie foods and processed carbohydrates are associated with poor sleep. Foods that are not helpful for sleep include caffeine. We all know this. Caffeine is a stimulant. We often have it early in the morning to help us get going, improve our energy at the beginning of the day. It helps us to stay awake and alert. But when taken later on in the day, it can actually cause difficulty in falling asleep, and it can reduce the amount of deep sleep. Now, a lot of us have caffeine or coffee later in the day, and some of us may think that it may not affect our ability to sleep. But it may do that. But the truth is that when you have caffeine, it usually, if you're able to sleep after that, you're usually in a state of lighter sleep and you don't get the deeper sleep that you need, which again is restorative and helpful for refreshing sleep. So I always tell my patients to avoid caffeine after about 3 p.m. And it's really important to avoid it about 6 to 8 hours before bedtime. Alcohol can also be disruptive to sleep. It can help to relax and fall asleep, but when taken too close to bedtime, it can prevent deep and restful sleep. So I always tell my patients to avoid alcohol for about 3 to 4 hours before bedtime. In particular, because of the relaxant effect of alcohol, it can relax the muscles of the upper airway and lead to increased snoring. And if you have sleep apnea, it can actually worsen the severity of sleep apnea, especially when consumed too close to sleep. So what are foods that you can consume that are helpful for sleep? We've all heard of the Mediterranean diet. This consists of whole grains, vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, fish, and olive oil, and less red meat and processed foods. There have been some studies that have shown that a diet closest to the Mediterranean diet leads to better sleep quality, in that people who consume this diet tended to wake up, tended to take less time to fall asleep, and they slept more soundly through the night, and they felt more rested upon waking in the morning and throughout the following day. They also mentioned that they felt that they got better sleep than the amount of sleep that they needed. Now, it's not clear why this happens, but the association between Mediterranean diets and good quality sleep have been validated. Foods that are also helpful for sleep include foods that contain tryptophan. We may know this after Thanksgiving. Often turkey will put us to sleep, and it does help to get restful sleep when you consume foods with tryptophan. Some of these foods are also chicken, eggs, cheese, fish, peanuts, pumpkin or sesame seeds, milk, tofu, and soy products. And then high quality carbohydrates are also helpful, and these include whole grain breads and cereals, brown rice, and oats. All right, so how much sleep do you really need? So as we know, newborns need a lot of sleep. They need about 14 to 17 hours of sleep. An infant will need about 12 to 16. And then that amount of sleep, the need for that amount of sleep decreases as we grow older. In school age, you need about 9 to 12 hours of sleep. And then as an adult, we need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep. So 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I think, is a good measure consistently for during adulthood. So let's take a little poll. Are you getting the recommended amount of sleep for your age group? So I want you all to chime in. First choice is yes, I am getting the recommended amount. Second choice is less, I'm getting less than the recommended amount. And third choice is more, I'm getting more than the recommended amount of sleep. All right, so just take your chance to just chime in with your answers here. All right, and it looks like the results are in, and the majority of us, about 77%, are getting less than the recommended amount of sleep. There's many factors that are probably contributing to that. It turns out about, I think the most recent data I saw was from about 2013. There's probably some more than that recently, but only about 50 to 55% of adults are getting the amount of sleep that they need. And this may have changed lately, especially over the past year as a result of the pandemic and the way that that's changed our lives. All right, so what are some things that we can do to get the amount of sleep that we need? Well, first of all, you want to avoid the food, drinks, and other substances that can interfere with sleep. As we mentioned, caffeine and alcohol too close to bedtime can cause sleep disruption. You want to set a routine that will prepare you for sleep, and that includes setting a regular sleep schedule and maintaining a regular bedtime and a regular wake up time on a daily basis. And then making sure that you get about 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. And then doing things like avoiding napping during the day and avoiding caffeine late in the day and trying to avoid screens at nighttime. You also want to increase your physical activity during the day so that you can improve your sleep at night. So some of these tips that I just mentioned, they all fall under the umbrella of sleep hygiene. Some of you may have heard this term before. What is sleep hygiene? It is a behavioral and environmental practice that promotes good quality sleep and overall health. And it's important for physical and mental health and improving productivity and quality of life. It's something that we often are a little bit passive about, especially as now with working from home and our international connectivity and the need to respond to emails or do work, sometimes not always in the work hours. We have to be very deliberate about maintaining, again, regular sleep schedules, getting about 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night, and setting aside a time for work and a time for sleeping. So which brings us to our next little set of tips here. How do you get good sleep while working from home? Now, this is something that we all have to pay a little bit more attention to, especially with the way that the pandemic has changed things. A lot of us are working from home, so we have to create new routines to help promote good sleep and in turn, good work from home, because it's a new environment for all of us. So as I mentioned, you want to keep a regular sleep schedule. Can't emphasize that one enough. And part of that is avoiding lengthy lie-ins after waking. Because of our new routines of working from home, we don't have the loss of time that comes with transportation, like going to and from work. So there may be a tendency to lie in bed a little bit longer than usual, but that can actually throw off one's sleep schedule. So having a dedicated a set bedtime, set wake up time, and avoiding lie-ins after waking up are important to preserving a good sleep schedule. You want to create a dedicated workspace so that you are separating your sleep environment from your work environment. And that includes never working from the bed. If you work from bed, then your mind and your body start to associate the bed with inability to sleep, and that can in turn affect your ability to sleep at night. So dedicated workspace and also a sleep sanctum, meaning that you have a separate sleep space that is relaxing, somewhat dimly lit, especially dark in the evening, and separate from where you're working. You want to make sure that you take breaks, because taking breaks can actually help to improve focus and concentration and avoid the effect of tunnel vision that sometimes you can get from working too long. And then you want to also make sure that you're increasing your viewing distance from the screens. All of us are using screens these days in order to stay connected with our colleagues and to connect for webinars, conferences, including this one. When the screen is too close to our eyes, that can lead to digital eye strain, and that can lead to tiredness as well. So you want to maintain about 16 inches between your eyes and the screen. Some of you might have heard of blue light blockers, have wondered whether or not those are helpful. It turns out that those are not particularly helpful during the day, but are important when you're using your screens at nighttime. Now, again, it's always important to avoid your cell phones, tablets, computers, and TVs at nighttime. But if you must use those in order to work or for other necessities, then using blue light blocking glasses at the end of the day are important, because what those do is they filter out the blue light that's emitted from screens. Blue light has a tendency to suppress the secretion of melatonin from the brain, and that can throw off the sleep schedule and make you less tired when you should be sleepy. So blue light blocking glasses at night and increasing your distance from the screens in order to avoid digital eye strain.
Thank you, Dr. Jakar, for sharing all of those really great tips. This is information that I'm sure we can all apply as we all do our best to improve our sleep. So now I would like to turn it over to Priya Islam to talk a little bit about her own experiences and tips and tricks for maximizing her sleep quality as well.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to participate on this panel. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Priya Islam. I am the program evaluator for WorkWell NYC, but today I'm coming to you as a fellow colleague that's living and working with a sleep disorder. So before I hop into a few thoughts about how I personally maintain good sleep and work habits, I can tell you a little bit about my experience living with a sleep disorder. So I'm living with narcolepsy, which is a condition that Dr. Chikara mentioned a few minutes ago, and it's characterized by excessive, persistent daytime sleepiness. And that comes from the body being unable to appropriately regulate your sleep wake cycle. So some folks may know the condition, with some of the more dramatic symptoms, like, suddenly falling asleep or passing out, or losing muscle tone and collapsing over. But I will say that, like other sleep disorders and other conditions, narcolepsy exists on a spectrum. So a person with the condition can exhibit, many different symptoms. So for me, untreated, that translates to, feeling pretty much exhausted all the time, feeling very tired and sleepy throughout the day, having difficulty focusing, vivid, stressful dreams, as well as sleep paralysis. So, you can imagine that these kinds of symptoms may strongly interfere with having a productive work day. So what are the kinds of things that I do to kind of keep my energy up and stay productive? And I will say, in addition to the tips that were just mentioned, I feel like the most important thing, just in my personal opinion, is to build your self-awareness about your own energy and triggers. You really have to know yourself in order to heal yourself and to live optimally. So the kinds of things that I think about, what's my energy like? Are you more active in the morning or later in the day? I personally am very, productive early in the morning. So I try to utilize that by scheduling important meetings or doing work that requires like more thinking or heavy lifting in the morning. So I can take advantage of the hours that I'm most productive. And then I will say to that, utilize your resources. If you feel that you need kind of extra support or accommodations, see what's in the realm of possibility with your supervisor or agency. Maybe there's a meeting or two that you can shift around. So definitely look into that. Are there certain foods that affect your energy? All of our bodies are different and we respond to foods in different ways. And for me, heavy carbs make me almost instantly exhausted. I can look at a piece of bread and I'm already tired. So, foods like breads, pasta, rice, all of our favorite things. I don't cut them out completely because, even though that might be ideal or to minimize them, but what I do is I strategize to have those meals in the evening for dinner, so I can think of maybe having more high protein or veggie options for lunch, because those are the kinds of foods that keep my head clear and keep my energy up. I will say for caffeine, I'm not a big coffee drinker, but I love tea and matcha, and those do have caffeine in them, which can disrupt your sleep. So once again, I try to have them by the middle of the day before 3 p.m. latest, to kind of help me pick me up from an afternoon slump so I'm not too jittery, you know, in the evening. I also try to have lighter snacks or meals throughout the day to keep my energy up and consistent. Some other things, light. My desk is right by a sunny window, thankfully. But you know, if you don't have that that option in your home, try to get a few minutes outside to get some natural light. You know, it's important to kind of take a walk if you can, just get a few minutes of fresh air. Your body and brain will certainly thank you. And you know, like Dr. Chikara mentioned earlier, don't compromise on your sleep hours. If you can go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time, I find that that's critical for me to maintain my energy. So those were some tips, I guess, that I have for how I've been keeping my energy up. But I will say that if you feel like you're trying all of these things and you're getting consistent hours of sleep at night, and you're still feeling exhausted, I recommend seeking professional help or support. Sleep disorders in particular may have symptoms that are ambiguous or overlap with other mental health issues, which can make them difficult to discern or diagnose. I know for narcolepsy in particular, it may take many years to get diagnosed. I've heard upwards to a decade even. And for better health outcomes, you want to try addressing any issues that you may be having as early as possible. Personally, for me, it took a few years to get diagnosed and to get treatment. I was your kind of typical high achieving student. And in college, I was noticing that I was having more and more trouble focusing in class. So eventually I started developing you know, more symptoms, and I finally decided to seek help. But I know that for many folks, it may take years before you reach a point where you're seeking assistance. So just know, you know, you are in control of the quality of your life, and you deserve to feel energized and focused throughout the day. So do whatever you can to kind of know yourself and keep your energy up. Thanks.
Thank you, Priya, for sharing some information about your own personal experience. I think what you said about knowing yourself, I couldn't agree more. I think that's so important. Much of this information and the tips we're sharing, this is all sort of general best practices, but again, everyone's own personal condition is very unique and specific to them. So we really encourage you to utilize resources that we will share later on in today's presentation, and also do what you can to learn more about what works best for yourself. And so now I will hand it back over to Dr. Chikara.
Yes, thank you, Anna. And thank you, Priya. That was a great kind of recount of your own personal experiences. And I want to reiterate what she mentioned. Self-awareness is really key. If you find that you're asking yourself, why am I tired all the time? Or why can't I sleep? Then it might be worthwhile consulting with your physician about what might be the underlying thing. Brief episodes of one or the other may be transient and not consequential, but the persistence or recurrence of any of those things deserves medical attention. And sometimes it may take a little while before a diagnosis is made, but the earlier the better if you seek attention. So I want to just touch on the benefits and drawbacks of napping. Some of you may ask whether napping is beneficial or not. It can be in certain circumstances. So there are benefits for napping. It can help to relax and reduce fatigue. And a quick nap can often improve alertness and focus and creativity even. And it can lead to improved mood and performance as well. Some drawbacks about napping are that it can lead to sleep inertia. And this is a sense of grogginess or even disorientation upon waking from the nap. And also, if you nap too much for too long during the day, then that can interfere with sleep at night and reduce your sleep quality and then throw off your sleep schedule. So when should you nap? You should nap if you experience new fatigue or sleepiness, or if you have long work shifts. Napping is best done if it's short or in the early afternoon, and it has to be done in a restful environment so that it's favorable to a good, helpful nap. All right, so some of you have heard about melatonin. Some of you may have even tried it. Wanted to just touch upon it. Melatonin is often referred to as the sleep hormone. This is produced by the brain in response to darkness. And what it does is that it helps to synchronize the timing of your circadian rhythms to the daylight cycle in the local environment. It also has the properties of being a powerful antioxidant and also helping to regulate body temperature and blood pressure. It can be obtained over the counter at some grocery stores and at some nutritional supplement stores. And people will often take it for insomnia. It has some equivocal benefit for insomnia in that some people may find that it's very helpful and some people may not respond to it. And it really depends what circumstance it's being taken for. Melatonin really is helpful is for treatment of circadian rhythm disorders. And those include jet lag. We often need it when we are shifting time zones, especially if it's over more than a few hours. It can be helpful for shift work sleep disorder, which is a syndrome that leads to sleep disruption because of varying shift work schedules. When taken in those circumstances, or for delayed sleep-wake syndrome, melatonin has been helpful in that it reduces the time to onset of sleep. So it can help to consolidate sleep and also shift your sleep schedule towards a more favorable one for whatever circumstances you are working in. So just to recap some do's and don'ts. So things you want to do to help establish good sleep quality and good sleep quantity are the following. If you're having trouble sleeping, using imagery that's positive and relaxing may be helpful to improve sleep onset. You want to nap only if necessary and make sure that it's a short nap in the early afternoon so that it doesn't interfere with your nighttime sleep. You want to use your bed only for sleep, not for work. You want to set up a regular bedtime routine, doing relaxing things or calming activities before sleep, and making sure that you have a consistent sleep schedule with a regular bedtime and a regular wake-up time. Things you don't want to avoid doing are bringing your phone, tablet, or computer into the bed with you. Again, doing these things at night because of the blue light exposure that can suppress the melatonin and that can make it more difficult to sleep at night. And also just the very act of engaging in any of these things may be stimulating and may lead to racing thoughts at night, which can then interfere with sleep. You want to avoid drinking caffeine and alcohol before bedtime. And just to recap, I always advise my patients to avoid caffeine after 3 p.m. and to avoid alcohol about 3 to 4 hours before bedtime. And you want to try to avoid taking prescription or over-the-counter sleeping aids unless absolutely necessary. And if they are necessary, it's usually best to take them in conjunction with advice or guidance from your physician. All right.
All right, thank you, Dr. Chikara. We will now open it up to questions from all of the participants who are attending our presentation. We invite you to use the Q&A button that is at the bottom of your screen. And so one of the first questions that we have is, how does pulmonary issues influence sleep apnea and insomnia?
Okay, so it really depends on what pulmonary issues you have. Certain underlying lung diseases can affect sleep. Interstitial lung diseases, asthma, COPD can often overlap with sleep apnea and lead to conditions like hypoventilation or sleep disruption due to sleep disordered breathing. And in order to see what effect those have on sleep, it's best to undergo a sleep study and sometimes pulmonary function tests, because the combination of two can help determine what type of sleep disruption is occurring and then what treatment would be best for them. And it can lead to insomnia because of the arousals from sleep, because of breathing obstruction during sleep, or breathing impairment because of underlying conditions until they're treated properly. These conditions are often managed with treatment of positive airway pressure like CPAP or BiPAP, and then in conjunction with whatever medication regimen, including inhalers, that may be indicated for the underlying condition.
Thank Thank you for that response. We have another question. What can you do to reset your sleep rhythm after having a baby that is finally sleeping through the night?
So that can be difficult. So if the baby, especially newborns, if they're waking up frequently, that can of course disrupt your sleep schedule. So it's a good thing that they're finally sleeping through the night. And I think that that gives you the opportunity to reset your own sleep schedule. So you want to start with the basics: regular bedtime, regular wake up time. Try to avoid napping during the day. It may be helpful if you're feeling sleepy during the day to have like coffee in the morning, but avoid it in the late afternoon. And then if you need to, resetting the sleep schedule, melatonin sometimes is helpful for that at a low dose, like 3 to 5 milligrams. And that could help to entrain your sleep schedule back to your regular bedtime, regular wake up time. And then once you are entrained, then you can stop the melatonin. So avoiding napping, avoiding caffeine late in the day, regular bedtime, regular wake up time. Those are some basic things you can do. And then if it's difficult after trying all those simple behavioral measures, then it might be helpful to consult a physician.
Thank you, Dr. Chikara. We also have a few people asking, how long should an afternoon nap be?
Good question. I don't think that there's too much of a set recommendation, but I think about 15 to 30 minutes is generally agreed on as a good short nap, which can be conducive to restoring alertness and restoring focus and concentration. It's not too long. If it's too long, it's going to cause sleep disruption at nighttime. So about 15 to 30 minutes max.
I will add that it also might make you feel groggier than alert the longer you end up napping. I find that to be the case with me, that if I nap more than 20, 30 minutes, I'll wake up feeling more tired than before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the sleep inertia that sometimes happens.
And we have a few people asking questions about what is the recommended dosage for melatonin?
So it really depends on what condition is being used what condition melatonin is being used to treat. So about 3 to 5 milligrams is a good starting dose and can help to reset circadian rhythm, sleep shifts. Sometimes as high as 10 milligrams is needed, but usually if you're taking about 3 to 5 should be helpful. And again, for higher doses, I think it's helpful to consult a physician.
And we have one question here. How can we manage anxiety as we try to go to sleep?
It's a good question also. So anxiety often is a cause of insomnia. So things that you can do to manage that are to engage in kind of stress relief and relaxing type of things during the daytime. Hobbies are great for that because it helps to divert your mind from things that may be causing stress or anxiety. I recommend to my patients use of a worry book. Sounds a little silly, but it's exactly as it sounds. It's helpful for writing down things that may be on your mind. And I recommend to them that they write down what's on their mind, what they can do about it, and what they can't do about it. And that helps you to organize your thoughts about certain life stressors and then kind of unburden yourself from those stressors before you go to bed. And that way to prevent your mind from racing thoughts which may affect sleep. Those are some, I think, important recommendations.
To add on to Dr. Chikara on that, one of the things that I do is, I'm a Post-it hoarder, and sometimes at night I don't really I might not have the energy to kind of delineate kind of the way that Dr. Chikara mentioned about the kind of writing out your worries and whatnot. So an alternative suggestion to that is I take kind of a Post-it and then I'll just write down like the keywords of things on my mind. So maybe it's like a bill. So I'll just write down like the bill or like the debt or whatever. And then I take the Post-it once I'm done and then like throw it in the trash and then go to bed. And so that makes me personally feel better. But anything you can do, or even if you don't like writing it down physically, even just writing it on your like notes app and just being like, this is the space for that. And I always try to think of it like when I'm going into my bed, I think take, you know, all your worries, think about it before you step onto your bed, and then like release it for that moment. So maybe trying to reframe can potentially help.
Yeah, absolutely. It has the effect of unburdening yourself of those thoughts before going to sleep. Sometimes a physical act of it is helpful in doing so.
Thank you, Dr. Shikara and Priya. And Claire, as our EAP representative, I just wanted to give you a chance to jump in and see if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, I just wanted to build on some of the things that have already been discussed. I think on this last idea about sort of building some cognitive flexibility. And I noticed just now someone wrote in the chat, like easier said than done. We know at the EAP, we know how complicated that is. And so that's why we offer our services to all of you and your family members, because we do think that talking these things out can also help build that flexibility so that these worries, these thoughts don't become a weight or stay the weight that they are, and then therefore interfere with your sleep. So just, you know, to think about that and think about how talking things out can create a little bit more ease and hopefully help to build that better sleep hygiene that the doctor mentioned earlier. And also what Priya was saying, that kind of self-assessment that you need to do at times. I know for me, with this past year and the stress of living in this pandemic, it took me a while to realize like I can't drink that black tea each night before bed anymore, which I've been doing since I was a kid. And I always felt that it actually helped me get ready for bed. But now with my anxiety or worry or stress being higher, I'm a bit more sensitive to the caffeine. So you have to kind of do that detective work sometimes to figure out what your sleep hygiene needs to be or how it needs to be changed. And the counselors at the EAP can be of assistance with that.
Thank you, Claire. I feel like that's really great advice. And of course, we really recommend everyone to utilize the Employee Assistance Program as needed. So we have a couple of questions asking about, can you make up sleep that is lost? And on the other hand, can you also sleep more ahead of time to kind of save up sleep hours for later usage?
That's a tougher question. So there is a thing called sleep debt, which is kind of like the debt of sleep that accumulates when you don't get enough sleep for a certain amount of time and multiple days in a row. And yeah, you kind of can make up for it. You know, when you deprive yourself of sleep, then you also deprive yourself of the deeper sleep. And when you make up for it, then there's kind of a rebound of those deeper sleep stages that occur initially as you're reestablishing your sleep schedule. Then after a few days, as you get back into your routine, then you can get the like normal amount of sleep, 7 to 8 hours. But if that debt is accumulated too long, then that can start to have more longer term effects in terms of you know, mental health, mood, and even on other medical conditions if you're not getting adequate sleep consistently. Sleeping ahead of time, sometimes it can be helpful. For example, when patients or when anyone is doing shift work schedules and when they're shifting from day to night, we often recommend that they have a longer nap prior to that nocturnal shift. That way, it'll give them enough energy to carry through. And I think in short circumstances, it is helpful to get enough sleep before you know you're going to be sleep deprived as for a work shift or something like that. But sleeping too much in advance may not ultimately be helpful. The regularity is really what the body needs because we're in tune to the day-night cycle, and as much as you can do to preserve that, it will be helpful for you.
Thank you, Dr. Shikara. We also have a question here that I think perhaps Claire, you would be a great person to respond to this. This person's question is, I have read about revenge procrastination sleep which essentially is staying up late at night on purpose because during the day you felt that you did not have time to do things that you enjoyed. Are there any sorts of therapies or strategies that you may recommend for dealing with this kind of issue?
Can you say it's revenge?
Revenge, procrastination, sleep. Essentially putting off going to bed in the evening to have time to do something that might be enjoyable because during the day you had other obligations or responsibilities.
You see, I've never heard that before, but I know it. I know it without knowing it. I don't have a quick answer for that. I think that what I envision is having the opportunity to kind of talk out, what is your day looking like? And is there any way to readjust so that you don't end your day feeling a resentment that you didn't get to do the things that you really enjoy? And is there any other factors involved that are influencing that? So I just think having a sounding board, and a counselor can be that, is a way to look for other options and other behaviors that might be more beneficial to engage in.
I'll also add in that I've never heard that terminology before, but it is something that I feel like I often engage in. Somehow when I'm just before bed, I think about, all the crafting I want to do, all the, all of my hobbies or whatnot. Suddenly the urge to do them gets super strong. But what I usually do now is, if there's something that's super important to me that I want to do, like let's say get in a little extra reading or whatnot, I try to schedule it in. It really depends on kind of what your personality type is, but like that really helps me to just be like, oh, I'll put in my half an hour so I can like read my magazine. When I wake up in the morning, that's usually like kind of my time to drink my tea, read my book, rather than kind of getting to the end of the day. Because if you notice a pattern, you're getting to the end of each night and you're like, darn, I wish I had read this book, or I wish I had, seen my show. It might be time to kind of consider, maybe scheduling that in to an earlier time of the day so you don't get to the end of the day and think, oh, I didn't do that.
I actually am thinking now, I have it on the opposite end. I experience it where I'll wake up at like 3 in the morning and I immediately think of things I could be doing and get done. And sometimes I get out of bed and engage in that. And like Priya said earlier, sleep disturbance is so much on a spectrum. So for me to kind of lose a few hours that day and I make use of it, I don't feel like I'm really suffering. I'm able to kind of get back onto my schedule the next day, but it really depends on where people are at and their own personal sensitivities to that.
Thank you, Claire and Priya. So we have a question here from a couple of people about waking up in the middle of the night and having frequent sleep interruptions, whether it's having to go to the restroom or for other unknown reasons. What could be some of the effects of that, and what can be done to prevent these frequent interruptions in sleeping at night?
So it really depends on what's causing those interruptions from sleep. Often there can be, like I said earlier, some medical issues or mental health issues underlying. So the self-awareness also that Priya mentioned is helpful to kind of getting to the bottom of those things. Sometimes sleep apnea can lead to sleep disruption, and it kind of the sleep disruption can be as like the need to go to the bathroom at nighttime. And that's the way that the pressure changes in the upper airway affect the heart, and then how the body responds to that. Sometimes the need to go to the bathroom may be a symptom of sleep apnea. If the sleep disruption and the frequent arousals occur frequently, I would advise seeking a physician's opinion about what the cause of these might be. But I think in general, to promote good sleep quality around that, going back to sleep, you want to make sure that you lie in bed for about 15 minutes, do something relaxing. And if you can't fall asleep, then it's important to get out of the bed, do something relaxing, and then go back to the bed when you can't sleep. But after an arousal, if you lie in bed too long, then that can actually interfere with further sleep. And then you'll start to associate the bed with inability to sleep, and that could further disrupt the sleep quality. You know, in order to prevent the arousals from sleep, you also want to make sure that you're going to sleep at a time when you're sleepy, not going to bed early and then lying in bed for 2 hours before you fall asleep. Setting a bedtime closer to your actual sleep time is helpful to prevent arousals from sleep at night, and also helpful to consolidate your sleep.
Thank you for that response. And looks like we have a few more questions about melatonin. What are some recommendations about how they should be taken, or when, how often, the dosage, and is there a potential of becoming addicted to using melatonin?
So as far as I know, melatonin has less of an addictive potential than other sleep aids. I think that it's not really so much habit forming. It should be taken depending on what it's used for. Some people will take it and they'll feel sleepy shortly after taking it, so within 30 minutes before going to sleep. But when given for circadian rhythm disorders, we usually recommend that it's given about 2 hours prior to sleep. Like all sleep aids, melatonin should be used for short term. And if there are long-term if there's long-term sleep disruption that you're managing with melatonin, then it deserves the attention of a physician, and it can be used kind of as a bridge to some definitive type of treatments. Sometimes for insomnia, we recommend cognitive behavioral therapy. Sleep aids are helpful to foster your sleep onset and sleep consolidation as you're making those behavioral changes, and then the behavioral changes should take place in the long term. So again, all sleep aids, best if given short term, and if you need them for longer than a short time, a physician's guidance would be helpful.
All right, thank you, Dr. Chikara. So unfortunately, that is all the time we have for questions today. But if you have a question that was not answered, we invite you to utilize the resources that we have available for city employees, which we will discuss in the last part of today's presentation.
Okay, so at Bellevue Hospital, our sleep medicine program, 2 major components to it. At the sleep medicine clinic, we provide care for the entire spectrum of sleep disorders for the adult and pediatric populations. Some of the more common syndromes that we see are obstructive sleep apnea, insomnia, narcolepsy, periodic leg movements and restless leg syndrome, and also circadian rhythm disorders, which we talked about in some detail today. We have a sleep laboratory on site at Bellevue. And over there, we provide overnight testing and sometimes daytime testing for the evaluation of different types of sleep disorders. And that sleep laboratory is operated in conjunction with our colleagues at Sleep Disorders Institute, which is also based in Manhattan.
And for people who would like to get in contact with the sleep medicine clinic, Dr. Chikara, how can people do that?
So best to call our clinic coordinator. I think that we have her information up on a later slide, but her phone number, the phone number for the clinic is 212-562-1734, and they can assist you with scheduling an appointment. Usually we'll do a clinic evaluation and then schedule for a sleep study after that.
All right, thank you, Dr. Chikara. Another resource we have is Be Well. Be Well is the mental health portion of the WorkWell NYC worksite wellness programs, and Be Well provides resources and wellness programming to help manage stress and develop resilience for city employees. I saw that there was a question in the chat about meditation. That's definitely a really useful tool that people can utilize to help with recentering and calming down and getting centered before bed. And we do have a number of meditation classes on our wellness calendar, in addition to other things like yoga, self-massage, and other fitness classes. We also have our Let's Talk campaign. Many of you may be familiar with the statistic that 1 in 5 New Yorkers experience a mental health challenge each year. And with our Let's Talk campaign, we are working to eliminate mental health stigma in the City of New York workforce by creating supportive workplaces and building resilience in employees. And we also have the Employee Assistance Program. I'll turn it over to Claire to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so our contact information is there. If you give us a call, please leave a message. Our hours are 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. If you leave a message during that time, we'll have a counselor in touch with you that same day. Or you can email us at the email address on the screen. And you could also go to our website. In addition to what Be Well offers, we have videos that lead various kinds of meditation, and we're also able to offer those in several different languages. You can also learn on our website about our ongoing evening groups that are open to all city employees. And I'm thinking the one that is offered on Monday evenings at 8 p.m. might be helpful in regards to this topic, which that group really focuses on stress management and relaxation techniques.
Thank you, Claire. Another resource is NYC Well. This resource is available to all New Yorkers, regardless of whether or not you are a city employee. And with NYC Well, you can connect with a counselor for free and confidential mental health support. You can contact them by phone, text, or chat, and you can access mental health and substance use services in over 200 languages 24/7. And lastly, we would like to shout out some upcoming events that we have. We have the 5 a Day Your Way Challenge. This is WorkWell NYC's challenge, where you are encouraged to get 5 servings of fruits and vegetables each day for the month of March. And by registering for this challenge, you will receive prompts, a personal tracker, recipes, and other healthy eating tips. And everyone is welcome to sign up for that, regardless of whether you're working remotely or in person at your work site. We also have In the Kitchen with WorkWell NYC, Strive for 5. This is our series of virtual cooking demonstrations, which have been very popular. With these virtual demos, you'll learn healthy recipes and learn how to create meals that can help you very easily achieve your 5 servings of fruits and vegetables daily. And by joining the session, you are invited to cook along with the chef, or you can just watch and learn. And lastly, we have Transformation Tuesdays, resume and cover letter building. This is part of our professional development series where participants will learn how to craft a compelling resume and cover letter. You definitely don't want to miss it. And you can register for all of these events and learn more details at on.nyc.gov/upcoming events. And we invite you to connect with us on a number of platforms. You can find our website, nyc.gov/workwellnyc. And of course, you're invited to send us an email at workwell@olr.nyc.gov. And we invite you to follow us on Instagram at workwellnyc and connect with us on LinkedIn. And that concludes today's presentation. Thank you so much to our panelists, Dr. Chikara, Dr. Camarada, and Priya, for taking the time to share all of your expertise on this very important topic. I know that so many people had questions, and we really encourage you to utilize the resources that were shared if your question was not answered. And thank you to the participants for taking the time to join us today. And we do have a quick poll here before you go. How would you rate the overall quality of today's program? And the options are poor, fair, good, very good, and excellent. And this poll is anonymous, so please do not hold back with your thoughts in responding to this question. Okay, so I see that there's a mix of responses. Thank you very much. And one other final quick poll. Oops. Our last poll question, this webinar increased my knowledge on the topic presented, and the options are yes or no. And again, this is anonymous. Please do not hold back with your responses. And if you feel that this presentation was not helpful, we do invite you to send us an email. Again, it's workwell@olr.nyc.gov. We'd love to hear your thoughts so we can continuously improve and create programming that best fits all of your needs. All right, so thank you all for joining us today. We hope we will see you all at a future Workwell NYC event. And again, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you have any questions or concerns or follow-up.
Take care and be safe, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.